Perfectionism was a way of life for me where I wouldn't ever launch things because it wasn't perfect. I wouldn't apply myself because it wasn't perfect. I wouldn't put a video up because it's perfect. That ideology simply is one of the most destructive things that has ever existed in my life. At 41 years old, there's so many unfinished projects in my life, which is embarrassing and I'm really sad about, to be totally truthful. And it's because of this thing called perfectionism. In these videos, right? I look at my first video, the first video I ever made, the first one. I literally have the camera a bit wonky because I'm trying to get the guitar headstocks in there. So I got 98% of my body out of the camera. I mean, and I look back at that now and I think to myself, man, what a jamoke. However, I'm not going to take it down. I'm not going to take it down simply because I want to be imperfect. I want to be human. Congratulations, you're part of the human race. If perfectionism is something that you've been chasing like me, I really need you to know you've been chasing the wind. I've been chasing the wind my whole life. Well, it's got to be this, it's got to be that, it's got to be done here, it's got to be done there. All this nonsense. Nonsense. Perfectionism truly is the thief of destiny. That's what it is. One can strive to be your best, but if you strive to be greater than human, you will simply never achieve anything. At least that's what I've done for 41 years. Until recently, when I started posting videos, putting up content, building my platform out. You see, I am not like everyone else on the internet that does everything they can to look good because they're afraid of who they see in the mirror. I see my flaws and I'm honest about them. And I'm honest about them because I truly believe we have an entire generation of people that looks at the internet and thinks that that's the human condition, thinks that that's real life. And it has created a massive mental health crisis that people don't necessarily want to talk about. It's wild to me how we are comparing ourselves to people that live a curated life. And then every now and again, you get to see what's actually happening when the divorce papers are signed or when there's a scandal that blows up in the person's life. And then you realize, wait a second, this person is just as human as the next guy. I believe that that is the biggest fantasy land that we're in. And so from the beginning, my goal has been to actually honestly and authentically share what's really going on in my life. We all have the same thing. It's called the human condition. If you strive to be perfect, what you're really saying is, I want to achieve things I can never achieve. And therefore, what does that create? Procrastination, inaction, and nothing ever getting done. This is what I've learned about myself. I get things done about 98%, and then I quit on it. Why? I've been asking myself that question for years and years and years and years of my life. Why do I get about 98% done, and then I'm like, I'm checked out, I'm done with this thing? The answer is because I was unable to accept my flaws as a human being. I had to be greater than human. I had to be perfect. And this is why us perfectionists, we create structures that are impossible to build. I'll give you an example. In my life, I made a record, I don't know, what is this, 4 or 5, 6 years ago now. And I love this record. I was super proud of it. I love the music. I love what it meant. I love what it stood for. I get all the tracks back from Nashville, and I haven't done anything since. All I got to do is track the vocals, and I'm Gucci. But because I wanted that record to be greater than human, be more perfect than I was capable of being, because I can never be perfect, that record sits there collecting dust. It really makes me sad, because perfectionism in my life has been the thief of accomplishment. It really is for me. It's the thief of accomplishment. It's like I refuse to allow myself to finish things, because once it's finished, it's not going to be good enough. It's got to be perfect. I refuse to allow myself to finish things because it's like, it's got to be perfect. It's got to be greater than human. For me, there's also this wrapped up thing in there of other people's approval. How are they going to see it? All of that. That thing that is kind of gross, in my opinion. It's gross because it disables me from being myself, and it enables me to be an inauthentic representation of a human being instead of being a human being. And then I decide, well, I'll work on this later. And later never comes. Because as a perfectionist, I've very, very rarely been able to put things out with mistakes in them and like allow it to just be what it is. I've released 2 albums before, and I'm really proud of that music. And I look back on it and I think to myself, I did the best that I could in the moment. But at that time in my life, I was not as introspective as I am now. And I did not do anything with the records. I released them, never built a band, never put a show together, never put it out on the internet, released. I got the record sitting over there in the closet, which I think is comical. But I also think that the music was pretty good. Man, I love that music from that era of my life. However, I am too much of a perfectionist to let anybody else hear it. Too much of a perfectionist to let the world hear it or hear about me. What a sad way to live. What a sad way to live. Being perfectly terrified to be yourself. Because I want something out of putting out music that I can never get, which is the authentic approval of my parents. And so I have to be so perfect that I never release anything. I never put anything else. I never put myself out there, because I'm searching for perfect things from imperfect people, including myself. Which gives me much sadness, much sadness, because I genuinely feel like we all have so much to offer the world. And if you're anything like me, you may be hiding gifts and things that you've been given because you want to be perfect. You want to be greater than human. This has always been my pursuit, to be greater than human, to be beyond what I'm capable of. What a way to live. It gives you the ability to be hypercritical of yourself and never good enough without any results. What a way to live. But that's the way I've lived most of my life, is afraid and in inaction, and on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing, on to the next thing. Even in this YouTube journey that's been around for, 40 days or something like that, the exact same thing happened. I got a bunch of videos posted, was crushing it, doing a video a day, and then this perfectionism thing kicked in, because I looked back at some of my older videos, and it made me feel like I don't want to post anything anymore. And so it took me a few days to understand why that is. And it's because I am a flawed human being, and I'm witnessing that and saying to myself, I don't want to be seen as that. I want to be this perfect human being over here, this fake thing that it seems like the rest of the world is. And it made me genuinely not want to post things for a few days. And then after some reflection, I realized, wait a second. I believe that there is a incredible audience for people that are authentically themselves, and that's just all I'm going to be. I don't ever believe I'll have the privilege in my life of being perfect. I really don't. I don't think I'll ever be good enough to start. I don't think I'll ever be qualified, right, to do what I'm doing. However, I don't believe that I need to be. I was talking with somebody the other day about these next steps that I'm taking in my life. And instead of happiness or excitement for me, their questions were all about, well, do you have a bunch of letters after your name? Or do you have this? Or do you have that? Or are you, really at the core of it was, are you qualified to do what you say you're going to do? And I'm like, yep, I am. I lived it. I overcame it. And I've helped countless other people overcome the stuff that they're going through. And it was one of the first moments in my life I stood up for myself. Instead of questioning me, I said, nope. I have figured something out that's unique to me that I believe will help infinite people in life. Infinite. And I am going to share that with the world. And it was in this moment where I realized and recognized that exactly that thing that I have been avoiding because I needed to be perfect, I needed to have all the ducks in a row, and I need to be seen in a certain light. It's that thing that I am going to escape from all of the days of my life. And other people are going to try to put that on me, and they're going to try to question me and determine if I'm qualified and this, that, and the other thing, which is fine, I suppose. Yet, in my humanity, I have decided I'm just going to do it anyway. I'm just going to connect anyway, and I'm going to serve anyway. And I don't care about qualifications. In my case, my qualifications are I went through a crucible of suffering and violence in the first chapter of my life. I spent well over a decade working on the second chapter of my life. And now in the third chapter of my life, I spend an infinite amount of time serving and helping people overcome and grow through the challenges of their life. And ultimately, what I'm not going to do is die with the wisdom that I've learned. And so there was this moment of recognition where the world wants me to be perfect and wants me to have the qualifications and wants me to be important. However, the world has forgotten how those qualifications exist in the first place. And that is people doing things long enough to develop competency. You see, what is a book that you read? It is a display of competency of a human being doing the same thing on a long enough timeline that now that they're in a position of authority. That's simply all that you do when you go to college is study books. It's not like rocket science. You know what I mean? You literally pick up a book, you buy a book, you read the book, you then understand the book, hopefully, and by the end of the semester, boom, I have read a book. Okay, well, what if I read all of the same books and understood all the same books and then integrated it into my life and have my own personal experience that qualifies me to be able to communicate on a topic? You see, the world wants you to be qualified and to fit into boxes, and I don't ever want to be qualified. I don't want any numbers after my name. I don't want any letters. I don't care. What I want to do is be me and help people, because that conversation really brought it to a head in my mind. You know, with the people that I've coached already in my life, if I were to say I need to be perfect and I need X, Y, Z to be able to be qualified, to be able to help this person, there would be many people out there, to the tune of hundreds and hundreds of people, that would have greater suffering in their life right now than they did because I served them and gave them wisdom and information. There'd be, I don't know, 20, 30, maybe more divorces. There'd be many more broken homes. There'd be many more people addicted because I was selfish to say, well, I don't have the right pieces of paper, so I'm disqualified. I'm here to tell you, the pieces of paper don't qualify or disqualify you. They really don't. I've ran into many people with pieces of paper that were in the psychological world that I would take their pieces of paper and throw them in the trash because that's about what it's worth in my estimation from how I've seen them wound people and destroy people's self-confidence. And so what I would say is this: giving yourself the permission to be yourself and be qualified helps you escape perfectionism in this beautiful way where I'm just going to be me and I'm going to accept me as I am and I'm going to serve with the greatness that's within me. That is the prerogative of life. And if you want to go get a bunch of books and read a bunch of books for a particular function in society, like lawyer, right? You got to read a lot. Doctor, yep, totally get that. Right? Psychotherapist, totally get that. But as a coach in my life, I don't need to have anything other than my life experience. I don't need to be perfect. I just need to share of the wisdom that I have learned through my great suffering in my life with the world. And that's enough. And you're enough too. You have something to offer the world that you're hiding from it. Stop hiding. Start sharing. Start connecting. Start serving. And before you know it, you'll be shocked at who you can impact.